I'm very excited to be here today, so I'd like to thank Dr. Nelly for that. And I'm just going to share something that I've been interested in for a very long time, for many different reasons, okay? Really, the most important reason is that creating comics and stories with students is a type of play that creates meaning and gets our students to create their own meaning from the language that they are learning in the target language, and that it's something beyond a course book and something beyond the standard type of experience in language learning. So when I was creating this presentation, it was a mixture of fun and fascination with the whole idea, because I did a lot of research behind the psychology of comics, and I studied some comic writers who actually do teacher training with comics, and who are artists and linguists and teacher trainers and many other things. So the presentation takes the form of an interview, okay? So in the past few years I have experimented with many different comic making platforms and multimedia platforms, but I kept going back to the same platform again and again. And the one I kept going back to was Make Believe Comics. And this website was not the most interactive or the most colourful, but it was definitely the most meaningful. So, and I also learned that simplicity in design and having the right heart and right psychology behind the making of the comic style applications is much more important than special effects that you might have on some platforms where you don't know, there's no heart in what you see there, okay? So I was just completely compelled to keep going back to Make Believe Comics, to do stuff with my children and with my students. So today I want to share many reasons for why I think this is a very powerful way to teach comics, but it's also because I interviewed Bill Zimmerman, who creates the platform, and his answers to my questions were very powerful and meaningful for me, and I really wanted to share that. So I took some snippets from the interview for the presentation, but I'm going to follow this up with a blog article of the full interview. So basically, the man behind Make Believe Comics, Bill Zimmerman, has put his heart and soul into the creation of something for children, any language learner all over the world, just because he wants to make a difference, and that's the only reason why he does it, okay? So, I'm going to present my questions to Bill, followed by lesson ideas and a little bit of psychology, okay? Right, so here we go. Now, as I said, I had fun creating this, so I played around with a nice comic style front. This comic style will change later because I'm going to use some of Bill's comic characters also. Okay. Now, this is a list of what we're going through. It looks quite detailed, but a lot of that is in the links. Mostly it's a very visual run-through. With linguistics and psychology, I'm really going to show you some quotes to bring the heart of what we're doing into our life experience. If you're interested, then you can follow up the links later, okay? So there are some links to little psychology, but mostly ideas. So here we go. Right, so I'm starting off with a quote from Len Vygotsky, because he came up with the zone of proximal development. What this is, in simple terms, is that children learn better cooperatively. And our basic thing here is about collaborative learning. So I'm not just talking about comics, I'm talking about lessons where students collaborate on comics. So what a child can do in cooperation today, he can do alone tomorrow. This kind of collaborative learning is something I've experienced a lot online through professional development with collaborative blogging or these massive online courses. Recently with the EVO Electronic Village Online ePerfect textbook, I was one of the moderators helping Shelley Turl to guide 500 international teachers and writers in creating ebooks. And we were all learning together. I felt this is a zone of possible development. And after this, we're all going to go our separate ways and continue writing our books. We did all the basic work together and shared everything together, and then we're going to continue creating on our own. Okay? So this is a very powerful idea. Now, okay, I've got 4 quotes here from 4 comic makers I've been studying and following. I'll start with Bill. Okay, so Bill Zimmerman says, the process of using drawn characters and writing words for them to say or sing provides the way for students to integrate key material. So we're all familiar with traditional lessons on course materials and reading and writing, but with comics, they create their own images and they put their own ideas into speech bubbles, and it's a much deeper process and a much more creative process, and it reaches students on many, many levels. That it's hard to pinpoint in a way, which is why I did a lot of research and read what all of these comic makers and writers have to say. Somebody else I studied was Neil Cohn. When you click on his website later, you'll be amazed by the visuals and the depth behind what he says about comics. So anyway, here's a quick quote. Just like words in sentences are used in spoken languages, sequences of images can create a visual language. Okay, now probably most of us grew up in a more text-based reality, so we're all able to read big novels or newspapers, and maybe we also have comics, the comics for our hobbies. But we've never considered language, maybe in English language teaching, as being a language of different mediums, not just text and written word, that it is a visual language, and the more we show pictures, images, or use comics, or create multimedia, we're bringing the language to life so students can experience it in a multi-sensory way. Okay? Scott McCloud is a very famous writer who has written many books about comics and education. And he says, today comics is one of the few forms of mass communication in which individual voices still have a chance to be heard. For me, this is very meaningful in our context because we are talking about collaborative learning and we're talking about collaborating with comics. So if you've got lots of people online, maybe it's just a class of 40 students, or maybe it's a large online course, okay, traditional or online or blended learning, if you've got many students, it's not always easy to hear each individual voice. Okay, so in a normal class with the same materials for each student and not enough time for self-expression, we cannot, we're speaking to the group, we're speaking to the class, and we're not speaking to the individuals. Okay, but by having the right type of lesson plan where each student gets to create their own stories and comics and share, we hear every voice and every heart behind the voice. It's very powerful indeed. And one more here from Nick Suzani. Nick Suzani did his PhD in comic form. So, if there are any academics here today, like Dr. Nelly, I'm not sure who else, Nancy. Anyway, we're all a little bit academic, I'm sure, because we're teachers. Can you imagine writing a PhD in comic form? So I actually went and I read his dissertation, and it's in comic form with some speech bubbles and headlines, but it's really deep and visual, and it's completely academic, but with the visuals we can really understand what he's saying, so it's absolutely amazing. And he says, to be better thinkers, to be more whole in our thinking, we need to engage with various viewpoints, the different ways of seeing what we have at our disposal. In a grand sense, that means not building barriers between the arts and the sciences. So, what I have been passionate about for the last 10 years or so mostly is this barrier between the arts and the sciences, and that's why I talk about multimedia, comics and brain-friendly learning a lot, and about self-expression. Okay, so all of these tie in together. Okay, we've got the visual language, bias between arts and sciences, and different ways of seeing. And then we have students being drawn into the characters and individual voices, personalization even within a massive context. Okay? I've got all the links on the PowerPoint. This writer, Nick Sivani, just shared part of his dissertation. Or most of it, or even all of it. So you will be able to click on his name and find everything. Okay? Alright, so here we go. Okay, so this is something I picked up from more research here. When we combine visual language with spoken and written language, we create more meaningful channels of communication. This aids comprehension, memory, language development, and increases motivation. Yes, Helene, when you see it, it makes sense. You see, we're looking at a whole different way of self-expression. It's not just text, it's visual language. So let's look at the practical aspects, okay? Today I'm going to show practical lesson plans, and these are the practical aspects: comprehension, memory, language development, motivation, and all of that's inside having fun and playing. And playing creates meaning. It's extremely important for adults and for children. These are more amazing links, okay? This is a PDF, an academic PDF. This is an initiative from Finland where they adopted a large-scale program in schools with comics. So all of these are absolutely amazing. Okay. Okay, so this is what my planning for as I went along. I kind of put myself inside this character. So it's an exciting day today. I'm making a presentation about comics and education and interviewing Bill Zimmerman. So Bill wants to be interviewed by text and email, so I just took snippets. For the interview. And as I was planning, I created a little mind map as well. So I interviewed Bill and I made a mind map. Okay, so this is very simple. Again, because I want to remain focused on the practical. So it's visual learning, so it engages students more. It's intelligent, but it's also fun and very motivating. So storytelling always leads to self-expression, and that is very magical, very creative, and develops the whole person and can have deeper impacts on a person's life even, because learning becomes really meaningful and influences the whole person. And the context is very powerful because you can put your target language into the comic. Okay, so as I said before, with course books we are presented with the language. But I think we can use course books as a guide, but then we change the language to students. Okay? Grammar is the same everywhere and words are the same, but how we use the grammar and how we use the words, how students personally perceive words, feel words and expressed words are different for every single individual everywhere. We can reach our targets, we can teach the right grammar, the right vocabulary, but we can open it up to them to change and adapt and develop more. Or we can go from one classroom experience and say, I know we need something more, let's develop this tomorrow and bring out the creativity. Okay? Right. Okay, so this was question 1 I asked Bill. We are now in our surrogate comic characters. Okay, so my comic character that I chose from the website is kind of like a reporter and a writer who's very curious and never stops asking questions. And Bill is Abraham Lincoln, I think. So anyway, do you have a personal story behind the building of the make-believe comic site? Bill says, my own love of comics and understanding of their value as a learning tool began when I was a child. This is part of a very long paragraph and story that you will read on the blog later. Yes, it's sad, Tom, that you aren't allowed to read comics. You know, for me, I read a lot of books as a bookworm, and I have no problem with text because my mind was able to convert text into pictures because it was full imagination. But I also had a lot of comics too, and there were different experiences. Comics had a different kind of magic for me. Yeah, so I imagine that Tom might be referring to the fact that in some societies people think that comics are inferior types of materials. They think they're not real books. Maybe maybe there were some comics that were poor quality, but all of the comics I read were absolutely brilliant. It's never too late to read comics though, you know, and I know, Tom, that you've said that you share comic materials around as well. Yes, exactly. Helene, imagination is more powerful than reasoning. Okay, glad you like Susan. So I'm going to run through quickly because we have a lot. Okay, so this is idea number 1. So what I did was I asked Bill a question and then his answer led me to an idea. So all of my ideas came from his answers to my questions. So he said his experience of comics from childhood was a personal one. So I decided that the first idea would be about personal stories. And, you know, these are a mixture of my own ideas and checking things out on the internet. So this lesson is adapted from something very similar on race.net. Okay, and there's also another link here, kind of related but different. It's about the project in Finland, where anybody can create comic initiatives with their classes. So here it is, retelling personal stories. Students think of a good story from their lives. A comic strip maker with objects, characters and speech bubbles can provide the thinking tools necessary to help simple stories evolve. A fun thing about make-believe comics is that students can represent themselves either as human or animal creatures, and this helps to open up the imagination. Now, sometimes if we say to our students, I want you to tell me a story, or come on, write an essay, write a composition, talk to me, they just close down because they're shy or they go blank and they are not confident. And they're not used to telling stories. I know around me, for example, some children in the local schools, they're not used to telling stories because they don't read books at home. So it all depends on your experience, and that's another reason why we need to do this in our classes, because if children do not get the input from their parents and the parents don't provide them with comics or reading materials or don't talk to them or tell them stories, they've got to get it from us if they're ever going to get through the school system and develop as people. And many children are deprived in that respect. And maybe their parents never got it when they were children either. So I think this is where we can make a huge difference to all students. And we can also reach we can reach everybody, students with learning difficulties or students who are kind of kind of gifted and running in front. So when we've got mixed abilities, and we do collaborative storytelling with comics, and everybody operates on their own level and everybody learns what they need to learn. So we can absolutely reach everybody, and I always think about children and what they have learned or what they haven't learned at home, because I've seen so much of some deprivation or what happens when they're not surprised, and it's extremely important. Okay, anyway, so to help students to tell stories, you first demonstrate by telling your own story. So demonstrate by telling students a funny story from your own life and show them your comic strip. So basically I got this idea from a website about storytelling, and I changed it for comics and for online as well as offline situations. So ask a couple of students to retell your story using the comic strip as a visual guide. Okay, so first you tell them the story, then you show them your comic strip, and then they can take some photocopies of the comic strip and retell the story again. So that would happen with photocopies in a normal setting. Online, you just share it with groups in your learning management systems or blogs or wikis. Okay, asynchronously if you want to separate them, or in the breakout rooms. Okay. So that's the first part of it. So here are some ideas. A funny thing that happened when you were young, a lucky escape, an embarrassing moment, your best day ever, a romantic evening, an adventure when travelling. Students create their own comics at home or in class together in groups, collaboratively. Now, I use make-believe as an example here again, and I am featuring this, but there are many, many comic sites, and I have links to open you up to everything. Now, I mentioned this specifically here because one thing that this website has is printouts. That's extremely important, and they're ready-made printouts also, so it saves you a lot of time. Okay, now, next, to bring in collaboration, instruct the students to tell their stories to their partners using the comic strip as a prompt. Okay? So, when they have finished telling their stories to their partner, they swap the comic strip. So this storytelling is that first you make the comic strip and then you tell the story. So that means you get time to have their ideas ready and let it flow without being put on the spot. Okay? And they swap the comic strips, and then students find a new partner and retell the story based on their partner's comic strip. As this goes on, students get to retell many different stories that were originally inspired by their classmates. And finally, you can place all of the photocopies together, and they can guess, who wrote the first story. Okay? And then you can hang them up and decorate your classroom. Okay? That's for traditional backgrounds. If you're working online, we can still do all of this stuff. They can pair up with partners in the breakout room. Now, if you've been following Nelly's classes, you might have experienced the breakout rooms. So all of you could be separated into maybe 4 different breakout rooms, which would have its own whiteboard and the same communication tools as we have here. So all of you would be able to work on your own different comic strips together. Okay? So online you can still work in groups, in the virtual classroom with the breakout rooms, or asynchronously. Now, there's one thing called Pop, where you record your voice and share ideas. Okay? And actually, we also have that in Google Docs now. Okay? There's another thing called Mail View, where you video yourself speaking and send the email to somebody. So you could actually collaborate with online students using video and email together. And of course, you have your Skype or your Hangouts as well if you're just meeting very quickly and it's not a huge event. Okay? Now, in this case, they can tell stories without revealing the comic strip. Okay, first they tell the stories, and then later they display their comic strips online. So they continue telling stories with new partners. Finally, the whole class meets in the virtual classroom, and the teacher showcases the comic strips. So all of the comic strips can be shown, and everyone has to guess who created the original. Then the comics can be posted on the class blog or Pinterest, comic websites, electronic posters like EduBlogster. Sometimes I put my children's comics on EduBlogster. I do it for Make Believe Comics, and I put them all on the poster. Okay, we have wikis on all types of visual media sites. So, whatever you do in traditional classroom, we can do again online. I think my favourite way is to do it with breakout rooms, because everyone is live online. You're together in the main classroom, you separate to do the pair work and group work, and then you come back in again. So that for me is something really exciting that I want to work with more. Okay, now, so emotional intelligence, this was my next question to Bill. What role do you think that emotional intelligence plays in the language learning process? And Bill says, much of my work is to help students tap into the memories and deep feelings which nurture them. So I was very inspired by his answers. This is only one small part of a very inspired answer. When you read the full interview, I think you'll all be touched on many different levels. He says some simple things, but they mean a lot. Now, we all want to build up this rapport with our students and reach them. It's not always so easy, but this is what he does with the comics. He gets them to express themselves, and when they express themselves, they remember things and they express things they would not normally talk about if you asked a question in the classroom. Okay? It's a kind of a journaling way to help them to write or to think without knowing they're actually thinking. Okay? So it's very powerful. Emotions. Okay, let me go back there. So, when they access their memories, they also access their emotions, because they're expressing their feelings. That's where deep feelings comes in. So, where I asked about emotional intelligence, Bill answered by talking about deep feelings which nurture them. So, when we tap into our own feelings, we can express our own feelings and create a story in the target language. Okay, we're fulfilling the criteria of the language, but we're nurturing our own experiences of life. So, and we're acknowledging and understanding ourselves. So that's one of the major elements in emotional intelligence. Okay? Okay, Helena, we can try experimenting with these if I get my time organized, because I'm really excited about all of this, so why not? Why not try them in the breakout rooms? That would be wonderful. Okay, so idea number 2. So idea number 2 is based on emotional intelligence, image, words, feelings, using words and pictures together in the group. Choose a theme the class has been studying and which preferably helps students to tap into memories and feelings. You can provide some vocabulary or grammar structures if you want to focus on form. Remember, we always have something to teach, a grammar lesson or some vocabulary. That's always there, but we do not push that aside when we play with comics. Instead, we bring it to the centre. And it's a strong part of the learning objective, and nothing is ignored, it's only amplified. So, amplify all the academic stuff, but they have so much fun. It won't feel forced, it will feel natural. Okay? So, you give random images to each group, and they must create their stories around the images in comic form, using both captions and speech bubbles to build up the background narrative. Actually, when I write my own stories, I often do it based on visuals or random words, you know? So sometimes my stories start off being very haphazard and then they come into focus as I go along. So, with the comic website, you've got the speech bubbles, the captions, and characters and images that you create. And those images inspire the ideas. So you don't get the idea first and find the characters. You get the characters first and the ideas flow. And that's what's happening in this, okay? This builds up the background narrative and the dialogue. Okay, I found that's a really easy way for me to write. I don't have to think, oh my God, I need an idea. Ideas just flow out by using either the images like this, or you can take random words from a book. Then those random words become the story. And I do that with students learning vocabulary a lot. What else? I wrote the book myself, the story, and I took lots of feeling words from a book called Nonviolent Communication, because I wanted students to learn how to talk about feelings. And the whole story was based on those words, but you wouldn't realise it when you read the story. Okay. Okay, so make